Welcome to Pigskins and Pageantry, a podcast dedicated to all things SEC football. My name is Wes, and I'd like to invite you to join me, Jesse, and Matt each week as we discuss last week's games, news from around the league, make predictions for the upcoming games, and much, much more. And what's up, everybody? It's Wes. This week, guys, we're here with a reactions recap that is here in less time than a Brian Harsin coaching tenure. I'm sorry, that was mean. That was mean and may not even be true. So, hey, just whatever. Time will tell. Jesse, I take it that yesterday was somewhat less stressful than the previous week.
Yes, I'm feeling much better. There are still some things I'd like to clean up, but it was a much more relaxing game for me as well as for my creatures that live with me. We all had a lovely day and spent quite literally the whole day inside watching football, and it was delightful.
A glorious Saturday. Matt is feeling zippy after pummeling Zippy the kangaroo. How's it going?
I as you can tell, I am in a very secure location. I am doing everything in my power to avoid the Tennessee hype train right now. I have secured myself in my bunker to avoid that, because there's a lot of talk right now about what Tennessee's getting ready to do this weekend to Florida, and I'm selling it, not buying that. I love my Vols, but we need to chill, guys. We need to chill.
You're not eating the
What's
rat
happening
poison.
on Vol Twitter? We haven't had a Vol Twitter update recently.
Oh yeah,
I haven't been on Vol Twitter.
Matt's in the vault. He doesn't know.
I've been secured. I'm in my bunker. I'm staying out of here.
That's it. All right. Well, let's go ahead and talk about those games from yesterday.
Always remember, if you ain't first, you're last.
All right. Well, let's get started with poor Auburn, Penn State 2-0.
Are we saying poor Auburn?
Yeah. Well, you know,
I'm saying poor Auburn. Poor Auburn.
Okay, if I'm looking at it objectively, not as a Georgia fan or whatever. I'm looking at it objectively, poor Auburn. Penn State just handling them, just beating them into the ground 41-12, which was like a slow burn, right? At the beginning of the game, it was like, okay, it's a little bit close. Auburn doesn't look that great, but hey, they're still in the game. And then Penn State would get a field goal, they'd pull away a little bit more, and then, you know, they'd find a touchdown, and it just snowballed, and it just got worse from there. So 41-12, the final. Jesse getting the points in this one. Like I said, Penn State dominating this one on the road, controlling the line of scrimmage on both sides of the ball. Auburn's offense unable to get anything going. We were texting about this during the game yesterday. Auburn put in Robbie Ashford in at quarterback from Oregon, who fared no better than TJ Finley. Ashford's interception in the third quarter put Auburn at 8 turnovers for the season with 0 takeaways. Losing that turnover battle is never good. Matt, what are your thoughts on this just beat down by Penn State of Auburn?
Well, you know, I was not anticipating this. I was anticipating this game to be a little bit closer. That's the reason why when we made our predictions last week, I was like, surely Auburn will be able to pull this off. I mean, it's a game, they're at home. This is a big game. Auburn should be up for it. But man, they couldn't get things going. And you know, they ended up with, I think, 4 turnovers total in this game. I think 2 picks and 2 interceptions. Sorry, 2 interceptions and 2 fumbles. And it's hard. It is hard to overcome when you have that many turnovers, and especially when you don't have any takeaways yourself. It's kind of difficult to keep yourself up and running there. The name that I was waiting to see, as you know, I didn't get a chance to watch the game. I watched part of it, but I didn't watch the whole thing. I was waiting to see if Tank Bigsby would be able to get something going, and he had 9 carries for 39 yards. His longest run was 12. It's just, I don't know what's going on in Auburn. I don't know why they can't. I'm not convinced that Penn State's that good, where they can throttle an SEC team, even if it's an Auburn that seems to be down this year. But I'm curious as to what all that means and what that looks like. I'm going to talk to my buddy Grant and see what he thinks about this situation with Brian Harsin, because it ain't so happy out on the plains right now.
No, definitely not. And Jesse, I know you don't feel sorry for Auburn being an Alabama fan, but what are your thoughts?
I don't feel sorry for them as a fan, but it's honestly embarrassing as an SEC fan of the conference just because it doesn't look good for the conference. The Big Ten is always touting that they're just as good. And then, usually we crush those hopes in a bowl game, but
Right.
this, during the regular season, we don't see them too much. So this was kind of embarrassing. Couple things that stood out is it was the first time Auburn lost a home game by 28 points or more since 2012. The last time that happened was November 10th of 2012 against Georgia, where they lost at home 38-0. That same season, because it didn't just happen once that season, they only had 3 wins that season, but they also lost 41-20, or that was at Ole Miss, pardon me. They lost to Texas A&M 63-21 at home on October 27th, 2012. So a lot of losses that year, and this is the first time they've lost by that margin or more since then. So not a good look for them. They reached the red zone 4 times, but didn't score a single touchdown when they got there. They settled for 2 field goals and threw an interception on a 3rd opportunity. And final red zone possession resulted in a turnover on downs in the final minutes. So obviously, as Matt sort of mentioned, turnovers played a big role in Penn State's dominance, and they were spotless with their ball protection. Auburn giving it up 4 times. And while football can be somewhat of a complicated game, taking care of the football, not complicated. And usually if you lose the turnover competition, you lose the game. So that was certainly the case here. Auburn's quarterback situation is a mess. Now, I will say their offensive line, not great. Wasn't great. Penn State finished with 11 tackles for a loss and 6 sacks. Their defense wreaked havoc in the backfield. And they didn't fear TJ Finley and his passing game at all. And to be fair, they didn't need to. He completed 11 out of 19 passes for 152 yards with an interception. And it was a mess. Ashford replaced him in the 3rd quarter, completed 10 out of 19 for 144 yards, but nearly half of those yards came in garbage time. So this schedule doesn't get any easier. It was not a good look for Auburn, and usually they show out at home. So that can't be encouraging. And if I'm Calzada, I'm very confused as to why I didn't get put in this football game.
Did you see what I reposted on our Instagram? It's like, I said, if I'm Calzada right now, I'm pulling an Antonio Brown, leaving in the 4th quarter and going to the nearest Sky Bar.
Yep. Yeah. It's just, at that point they might as well have put in anybody.
Right.
But no, it was a rough day.
Something I also want to kind of get y'all's viewpoint on too is I was looking through the recap and some of the sound bites that came from the post-game presser, and Harsin said, quote, "The key is really how we handled the disappointment. We still have a long season ahead of us. There's still a lot of football to play." Talking about disappointment and that kind of being like, is that a challenge to the team? It sounds a little bit like a challenge to the team, I think. How do they handle that disappointment? It's an interesting little soundbite, I thought.
How do you handle that? Hopefully do better.
Did you well, yeah, it was like, well, we'll talk about Shane Beamer and his little comment about stuff like that later.
Love it.
Anyway, yeah, for sure, it's interesting stuff going on down there in the plains. Let's talk about Vanderbilt at Northern Illinois, the Huskies. Vandy taking this one 38-28, although flirting with disaster, as Molly Hatchet would say.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Jesse getting the point in this one as well. But yeah, so AJ Swann got the start at quarterback for this one for Vandy. They struggled. Vandy struggled midway through this one. They were actually losing 28-14. We were like nervously texting each other at this point. I was like, what is Vandy doing? Like I did pick Northern Illinois, but I think I picked them in a close one. It was not like, like a multi-score win for them, which it was at that point. So yeah, Vandy was losing 28-14 in the 3rd quarter, but then they just like exploded for 24 unanswered points, including 3 straight touchdown passes for Swann in the 3rd. Jesse, let's start with you on this one. But look, I know it's Northern Illinois, but I think Vandy has something to build on here as far as resiliency and coming back. What do you think?
I mean, when you look at the opponents, you also have to understand it's Vandy. So that's kind of their caliber, to be honest. I mean, it was a pretty evenly matched game for the most part. Their freshman quarterback, AJ Swann threw for 4 touchdown passes, and they rallied. They really had to, and came back with a decent margin in a non-conference victory. It was Swann's 3rd appearance and his first career start, and I think he helped engineer that comeback. It was a 2 touchdown deficit. They scored 24 unanswered points in the second half, and he completed 18 of 28 passes for 255 yards and 4 scores. So not a terrible performance for a team that was playing at the level of their competition. So encouraging if you're Vandy. Now, next weekend, probably not going to happen.
Oh, yeah. I did see that earlier when I was prepping for the next section of our show, or for the next show.
I just looked at the schedule.
Yeah. Matt, what are your thoughts on this one?
That's a nasty little gauntlet they got to run through for the next month. You know what? I would call this a good win for Vanderbilt. We know that Vanderbilt is the academic school in the SEC. They're really good at baseball. Sometimes their basketball teams are pretty good. Football's not one of their programs that's known for being a powerhouse. So, good win for them. Gets them to 3-1. A little bit of a bounce back after that loss last week. However, like we just alluded to, the sledding is about to get incredibly difficult, especially when you look at who they're playing next week. But good win. I think they've got some stuff they can build on here with AJ Swann. He showed some moxie to pull them back into this. And for the defense to come out in that second half and blank Northern Illinois into only giving up a touchdown, it's pretty good. So, Vandy's going to Vandy. We were worried about them all afternoon. I know all 3 of us were like, are they going to be able to pull this thing off? And they did it. So kudos to them, I guess.
There's something to be said for your team not giving up, no matter who you're playing.
Right.
Yeah.
No, there's no quit in them.
There's
no Coach Beamer.
No quit.
No quit. Oh man. All right. Well, let's talk about Mississippi State at LSU. LSU taking this one 31-16. Matt is the only one who picked LSU, so he got the point.
I believe.
He
believe in Brian Kelly and his
Oh God, the purple's so bad. And I'm not just saying that because I don't like the color purple generally, but I'm saying like when they interviewed him at halftime, that's just not his shade. It doesn't work. It's honestly, I feel bad because yellow is a very hard color to pull off as well. And those are just really tough. It just doesn't work for him.
Yeah.
Maybe with like a white shirt or like
it was really
that has the logo.
It was really interesting on Coach O because you have this like hulking man from the Bayou with a purple shirt on, and it was just great. So
but it was like he was so leathery tan
that like it contrasted. There was a contrast.
There was a contrast. It was fine. Coach O doesn't have undertones because there's no skin left.
Yes,
right.
Brian Kelly saw his skin. It's just not his undertones.
He's been out there wrestling gators and stuff. He's not.
I'm sorry.
Bothered
I have
by
to say it. Thank you for Fashion Corner. We're done.
Yeah, there you go. The new segment on Pigskins and Pageantry. So, so as far as the game goes, we all know the Tiger Stadium is a rough place to play at night. We even talked about it on the last show. It's just a known thing. But honestly, I was so kind of disappointed in the way Mississippi State. They had so many opportunities in this one. The Bulldogs of the Mississippi State variety kind of let me down. A lot of mental errors, as I mentioned, special teams mistakes. They had the muff punt there, I believe. And then Will Rogers, look, he wasn't perfect in this one, but it's kind of ironic because I think we just had in the listener feedback segment last week, we were talking about how deep the receiving core is at Mississippi State. And I saw so many drop passes in this game. And I'm not putting it, I'm not saying Will Rogers is, like I said, is perfect, but man, it seemed like every time I was turning around, I was like, what is going on here? The ball was right there. You got to make that catch, and nobody was helping him out. So still credit to LSU. They did what they had to do. And Jaden Daniels, he had a great game. He was clutch, made some key runs when he needed to. He actually rushed for 93 yards and a touchdown as well. as passing for 210 yards and a touchdown. Let's listen to what Coach Brian Kelly had to say about this game.
Thanks, Tess. Coach Kelly, you were down by 13. Second half was incredible. You scored 3 touchdowns in the fourth quarter. What did you think of just the overall process and resiliency of the team?
Well, we're fighters. We showed that in week 1. We just didn't execute, at the end. But, that's what we know about this team. They'll fight. We executed so much better in the second half. Our defense played great. This is a really difficult team to defend. They played very well. I thought their defense is very difficult, but we got into a rhythm, and I think, quite frankly, up front, our guys did a great job in the second half. We were able to run the football. We had the big runs, and we could control the line of scrimmage late. And, in the SEC, you got to run the football. We were able to run the football late, and that was the difference.
What does it mean to get your first SEC win?
Yeah, it's really nice. Anytime you can win a game in the SEC, it's an accomplishment, especially against a really quality team, and that's a veteran team. We started 2 freshmen on the offensive line, and they managed to hang in there, and we'll just keep building it and take it one time, and we'll enjoy this one and get ready for next week.
Thanks for the time.
Thank you.
Matt, what are your thoughts on the fighting LSU Tigers?
Well, again, love the sound bites here. It felt like Butch Jones all over again, but either way, or maybe Drinky. I picked LSU. I'm disappointed for Mississippi State. Mississippi State came out. They looked pretty good in their first 2 games. I thought maybe we had turned the corner on the Mike Leach experiment in Starkville, but maybe not. This is an LSU team that is rebuilding a little bit after last year, and I picked LSU just because it was a night game in Death Valley. But I was really disappointed for Mike Leach, and like you said, drop passes were, I think, the story of this game. And LSU's defense played pretty solid game too. I can't remember who it was. I just had his stat pulled up. Is it BJ Olajari? Is that his name? Ojulari, yeah. So he had a pretty 2 quarterback curries, 2.5 tackle for losses, 1.5 sacks.
Yeah, they were calling his name a lot during the game.
They said his name a lot. His name kind of popped off the defensive stats when I was looking through that, because again, that's the thing about Mike Leach's offense. It's potent if you don't disrupt it. However, if it gets disrupted, then you're running into some issues. So I hate this for Mike Leach, but this is a confidence builder for Brian Kelly and for LSU. It will definitely be interesting to see how they build off this, especially as we get into the rest of the teeth of their SEC schedule. And I know Tennessee's going to have to go see them at some point. So kudos to LSU.
Yeah. So Matt's not he's not mad, he's just disappointed. So
I'm disappointed. That's a great way to put it.
Jesse, your thoughts?
Yeah, I thought Brian Kelly touched on it. The defensive line for the Tigers was great. They were probably the best position group of the night. They dominated the line of scrimmage against Mississippi State. They sacked Rogers 4 times and made 8 tackles behind the line of scrimmage. They hit Rogers even more when he was passing. And I think his performance suffered because of that during the second half. And he completed less than half of his throws in the second half. So it's like Matt said, when you disrupt that air raid offense, what else do you have? And their offensive line was just getting torn apart, which, in turn then affected Rogers. And Mike Leach said, it's unfortunate because we are explosive. We're just inconsistent. Explosive is fun, and explosive means you can get on a run and hit a lot of dingers on somebody. But in the end, that will catch up to you if you are not consistent. We have got to coach consistency in them. That is what we have to do, starting with me. And I think that's true. I think last season we saw it as well, where it was like when the air raid worked, it worked. And you saw these crazy numbers from Will Rogers. But then when it wasn't on, or when someone put holes in it, it wasn't great. And that's not something you can do in the SEC or really any conference. LSU outscored Mississippi State in the fourth quarter and 31-3 during the game's final 31 minutes. That's insane. Like you said, Daniels for LSU, he was great. He had a great showing, accounted for more than 300 yards of offense, including the, passing touchdown or rushing touchdown, which was great for him. Something that I wasn't necessarily expecting, just knowing that LSU is kind of rebuilding. And he completed 22 for 37 passes for 212 passing yards without an interception, and rushed for 93, mostly on scrambles. But that's got to be really encouraging for those down in Baton Rouge. So sad to see that performance from Mississippi State, especially because I picked them to win. But it's tough to play in Death Valley, and when your defensive line is showing out like that, you're going to put up those numbers and you're going to come out with a win.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, interesting look for both of those teams, some unexpected things, and we'll have to follow them both closely because we're interested to see where both of those programs are going. All right. So the next game we're going to have to file under, I did not expect to have to talk about this. And that was the Missouri State Bears at Arkansas. Arkansas winning this one 38-27. Jesse getting the point in this one. Here we are talking about this game for some reason. Arkansas, man, it's like they just decided to, like, I don't know what they decided to do. They were messing around against Missouri State and didn't even have a lead until 9 minutes left in the game. And that was when Bryce Stevens returned a punt 82 yards for a touchdown. So it took like a special teams miracle to do that. So they scored once more after that to get some cushion, but like, wow. I mean, it's like, it's a close call, and I can't even begin to think like what the reason might be. And we can talk more about that later. But yeah, I mean, KJ Jefferson throwing for 385 yards. I mean, still a great game for him. But just, I don't know. I can't really explain it. Jesse, do you have words for this one?
It was wild. I expected, once I found out that Petrino coached the Bears, he is their head coach. I was like, oh, Arkansas has been prepping all week. Everybody is going to show out. It's going to be a bloodbath.
You think they'd be hyped?
Wasn't. It was not. It was like Petrino had sacrificed a whole bushel of neck braces going into the week to curse these young men, because in the beginning,
hold on. That deserves that. I mean, that was good. That was
a good line.
But they were floundering in the first quarter. I mean, you watched, and it was like the bad news Bears for them. No one could get anything done. And the Bears had their number. I mean, they were moving the ball. They were doing everything they needed to. They led 27-17 early in the fourth quarter, as you mentioned, before the Razorbacks finally scored 21 unanswered points to close the game. But leading up to that did not look like it was going to happen. And I thought that for some reason, Mercury's still in the microwave, and we are in some weird alternate universe where we're just getting knocked off left and right. It was weird. But a victory for Missouri State would have marked just the second ever win by an FCS team over a top 10 opponent, along with Appalachian State's famous 2007 win at Michigan. So they almost joined the history books. Very close.
See, the thing is though, when you watch that game, and when I was watching their offense, Missouri State, they looked good.
They did.
I mean, their quarterback, I mean, he was like pulling moves on people and juking people out of their shoes. It was like, this is not an FCS school. It's just, I don't know. We're going to talk more about that later as well in the speed round segment. But Matt, what are your thoughts on this one?
I'm just as flabbergasted as you guys were. I don't understand how in the world we got to a situation where Arkansas was down going into the fourth quarter to a school like Missouri State. And no disrespect to the Bears from Missouri State, but we did not anticipate this. And I think this might be a case of Arkansas not really taking things seriously and looking ahead to next week when A&M is supposed to be playing. And something I always do when I don't have a chance to watch the entire game is I'll go back and kind of look at the drive chart and listen to the drive chart for the beginning of this game. So Arkansas gets it, goes 3 and out on their first drive. On the very next drive they go 2 plays and fumble and turn it over. On the very next drive, they get 6 plays. They turn it over after they've gone 75 yards on another fumble. The next one, they go another 3 and out and finally punt. And then finally, right with like a minute in, where is this? This is 10 minutes left in the half. They finally scored their first touchdown. It's just, I think this was a case of looking ahead to next week and getting caught with your hand in the cookie jar, so to speak. I did not anticipate this from a Sam Pittman coach team. This is something. I don't know. This is mind-numbing and mind-boggling that this could happen to Arkansas, but I'm glad they got away with it, because if they had lost this game, I don't know what the repercussions would have said. It would have made the entire conference look awful, considering Texas A&M just laid an egg last week, and now you've got Arkansas almost laying an egg against Missouri State.
And those two teams play each other next week.
Oh, do they?
Yeah. You're talking about looking ahead.
It's just, it's wild how that was able to get off the ground. But, kudos to Arkansas for not rolling over and playing dead. I don't think Pittman would have let them, and they roared back in that fourth quarter. No offense to the Bears on that one. But, pulled out the dub, but sheesh, you want to talk about making some people in the conference nervous? That was nerve-wracking.
Yeah, this is becoming like a regular thing. It's wild. All right, let's talk about in that same vein, let's talk about South Florida, doubles at Florida. Florida winning this one barely, 31-28. Jesse getting.
I was pulling for South Florida. I am going to be upfront about that.
Same.
I was pulling for South Florida. I'm a bad SEC person.
It would have been an incredible story, that's for sure. But
they deserved to win that game, honestly.
And Florida had no business winning that game the way they were.
Florida had no business winning that game, and they would have gone to OT, but that was a terrible snap and an even worse hold. The fact that kicker even got it off the ground was amazing.
It looked good coming out. It looked real good coming out. It just didn't. Anyway, go ahead, Wes. Sorry.
No. Yes. So, again, didn't expect to have to talk about it, but Billy Napier was very humble and praised South Florida, giving them credit for, a good game in the state of the program, really. Because, he knows what it's like to try to build a program in a conference that's not, like the mighty SEC or, whatever. Anthony Richardson struggled mightily in this game, 2 picks. Lots of poor decisions, but as you guys said, if it wasn't for that bad snap and a bad hold, we could have a very different conversation right now, and the same one that we had about App State and A&M last weekend. So I don't know, and it's funny, as a Georgia fan, so taking myself out of the objective look, and as a Georgia fan, I was texting you guys last night, I don't like listening to Billy Napier because he's very humble. He says the right things, and as a Georgia fan, I want to not like him, but when he talks, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. That's pretty nice.
Such a different look than the previous coach.
Yes, or many of the previous coaches. Yeah.
Oh God, it's like they hire like egocentric crazy men.
Well, and don't forget Coach Boom as well. Let's listen to what Anthony Richardson had to say after the game.
Got Florida quarterback Anthony Richardson here. When it comes down to it, at the end of the day, it's about winning and losing football games. What did you learn about you and your team tonight?
We just got to find a way to win, keep pushing. Despite everything that happened within the game, tough win for us. We had to fight through it the whole way. Just keep pushing no matter what, play by play.
There were moments that it had to be a little bit scary. Big plays going back and forth. You guys jump back in. They jump back in. Can you just take us through over on the sidelines, you, your teammates, how are you able to compete your composure and then find a way to battle back and win this game?
Just telling each other to calm down. It's not anything we haven't been through already. We always fought through adversity throughout last year and this year. So just talking to each other, keeping each other level-headed, and just keeping our composure.
You told us that you feel like you had a responsibility to win games in this stadium. How does it feel to get another one?
It definitely feels good to get back on the winning side, but got to get back to the drawing board and keep getting better. My offensive line and my running backs, they did good. I got to step it up myself, but overall we had a good win.
Thank you, Anthony.
So thank you,
Matt. As a Tennessee fan, I think this is a very poignant question. But should Florida fans be worried as they get into the thick of their SEC schedule with performances like this?
Well, I don't know, because they just played Kentucky last week, and they didn't get nuked by any stretch.
Yeah,
they only lost that game by 10 points. I think they pulled away in the fourth quarter. So they're still competitive. It's not like they're going to get completely demolished. And when we talk about the Tennessee game here a little bit later this week, I'll give my feelings on that. But if I'm a Florida fan, I'm probably a little concerned. Richardson's doing this Jekyll and Hyde thing where he looks really good one week and then the next week he doesn't look so good. It's hard to get real confident in a team when they have that sort of struggle. No disrespect to South Florida, but you see them struggling with that team and, having to work. And like Jesse said a little while ago, this game should have been decided in overtime. And I really liked South Florida's chances in overtime. It's just so weird. I don't know what to make of this Florida team, which is part of the reason why I'm in this bunker and why going into Florida week, I'm like, I don't know what to think. So again, to answer your question, if I'm a Florida fan, I'm probably concerned because it's not going to get any easier from here. Kentucky is a pretty solid team, like we talked about. We don't know if this is the Kentucky of a couple of years ago where they finished second in the SEC East, got their most wins ever in a season. We don't know what that looks like yet. So it's going to be one of those things where we're going to have to wait and watch and see what happens.
Yeah. Jesse, your thoughts?
Florida got outplayed by an inferior opponent at home in the Swamp, which is one of the toughest places to play. And things, to me, look as bad as they did about a year ago, which is not encouraging. The first-year starter, Anthony Richardson, God bless his sweet little baby angel heart, he threw another pair of interceptions and failed to score for the second straight week. Not great. Yeah. In 3 games, which I don't know why this is an interesting number stat to me, it just is. But in 3 games, Florida has allowed 26, 26, and 28 points. All of those very similar point totals, but they were allowed in very different ways. In this game, it was a combination of Anthony Richardson interceptions and a pretty poor run defense. Florida allowed USF to rush for 286 yards. And it's pretty clear that the middle of the defense is just as bad as the linebackers. So not great. Florida has not scored in the third quarter of its first 3 games at all.
Oh,
ouch.
Not weird. I don't know what we're talking about at halftime in the locker room, but maybe we should change our tactic because 3 is not their lucky number for some reason. Just weird. That's just odd. But they ran 48 plays in the game, and 3 of them were kneel downs just to run the clock out. So weird. Back in the day, you would run 48 plays in like a half. So they were 3 for 8 on third down conversions. Just a lot of great, not great stats. I'm concerned if I'm a Gator fan. I'm a little bit concerned. Usually your team plays better at home, especially somewhere like the Swamp where it is very, very electric down there. Your fans are almost on the field with you, just the way that the stadium is built. It was a night game. That should have really pushed them to do better. And if I'm them, I'm nervous going on the road. Maybe they turn it around on the road and they're different than every other team ever in the history of football. But I don't know. I think, to me, Anthony Richardson is not this like walk on the field savior type of guy. I think he's going to be you got to invest 2 years in this guy and really develop him before you start to see some results.
Yeah, he's definitely got the talent, but just that development as a player and decision-making and things like that, I think it's going to take some time, like you said.
And the real question is Billy Napier that guy to develop a quarterback?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Have you ever heard of a quarterback coming out of where he was before? I haven't.
No.
Not really, but
it was first for everything.
It's true.
By the way, I'm sorry. Go ahead. No, go ahead, Jess.
I was gonna say, I fully believe had this gone to overtime, USF wins this ball game. I do not think that Florida had the moxie to pull it out had it gone to overtime. The only reason Florida won this game was because of a mess up on a hold. It is not because they earned this win. I think you go into overtime, we are talking Appalachian State Part 2 here.
Oh yeah, when South Florida was driving, I was like, well, I guess we're going to overtime. And then the snap went 15 yards back, and then
it almost made it. It had the leg. It just it hooked to the right there at the tail end. A little
that
bit English.
Sweet Australian soccer player.
Right. There's always soccer. He's got 2 sports, so he's
I'm trying to figure out how that Gator defense gave up 402 yards of total offense.
Well, Gators, the Gator defense was big there for years, and then in the past few years, especially under Mullen, it's been more of an emphasis on offense and less emphasis on defense. Look at remember when they had the Kyles and all that stuff.
They focus on the Kyles.
How'd that work out?
Yeah, well, I mean, it almost worked out really well that one year for them, but yeah.
And now Uncle Eddie's doing analysis for ESPN. So.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good life for him now. He gets to, he gets paid.
I guarantee his blood pressure's a lot lower.
I was gonna say, he gets paid. He doesn't have to make, crazy decisions any longer. And all he has to do is talk about stuff. So, all right, let's talk about Miami at Texas A&M. That was the nightcap. A&M winning this one 17-9. Matt got the point in this one. So just right out the gate on this one, defensive backs Denver Harris and Smoke Bowie and wide receivers Evan Stewart and Chris Marshall were all suspended for this game for violating curfew rules. So they were already kind of, behind the 8 ball on that one. But then they lost defensive backs Brian George and Demani Richardson early in this game to targeting penalties. So we're just going way into the depth chart for defensive backs right now. As far as the quarterback play, we talked about this. Max Johnson got the start in this one, and I don't know if he did that much greater. I mean, you look at his stats: 10 of 20, 140 yards, 1 touchdown. I mean, it was better than Haynes King last week, but still, it's not exactly. Of course, as we'll hear from Jimbo, he did do better at his decision making and stuff like that. This one was kind of like a snooze fest as far as scoring goes. Not just because it was a 9 o'clock kickoff, but it was just kind of boring, honestly. But A&M gets the win. They bounce back from last weekend's debacle. Let's hear what Jimbo had to say about this one.
Coach Fisher, you had to make some difficult decisions this week, and one of them was pulling your quarterback. How do you describe how Max Johnson came in and performed?
I thought he did a really nice job. He led the team, played with poise, and didn't try to take things that weren't there. Made some plays when he was there. We got to get a lot better, but he led us to victory and did the things we had to do, and our defense played outstanding.
I thought Devon Achane was so terrific for you tonight. How do you describe the burst that he gives you?
He's just an unbelievable athlete that can catch and run, and he's a very diverse guy. Nias played really good. We have a lot of those guys like that. We just got to get to use them more and do a better job.
You had to make a hard stand tonight and help some young men grow up. How hard was it, though, when you kept seeing DB after DB go out of this game?
Listen, we got to do what's right. You got to do things right no matter what the circumstances are. I think we got to get everybody on the same page and doing those things. And just sometimes mistakes are made, but we grow, and that's what kids do. But, our team showed a lot of heart and a lot of guts today.
To beat a team like Miami that's on the come up, how do you describe what this does coming off that loss last week?
Oh, exactly right. So I say fear does 2 things. Fear everything and run, or face everything and rise. And that's what we did, and we got to keep doing it. We got to get a lot better, though.
Thanks, Coach.
Thank you.
Jesse, let's start with you on this one. What are your thoughts on A&M's win over Miami?
It was sloppy. It was a sloppy win, which, of course, I think you have that many guys out. It sucks to have to pull into your depth chart, but you got the #1 recruiting class. You should have the talent there to back it up. It was just, I don't know. I think there's no doubt that A&M's offense is extremely limited, is what I would say right now. I mean, I'm sorry, Achane. How do I say it? Achane. And Smith, they were essentially the only reliable pieces. Johnson was smart with the football, and he did the job. He played a clean game, no risky decisions, very different than what we saw out of King. But I don't know if he is enough to make them a contender in the West. If you continue to have those sort of rule-breaking behavioral issues and not a lot of discipline in the locker room, and that's going to be an issue moving forward. And we've seen some discipline issues in Jimbo Fisher teams of past. So that's got to be concerning. But I think there's just got to be a lot of development for this Aggie football team. and it's going to take some time. Of course, it's a great win to get against Miami, but when you get into the thick of that SEC schedule, you're going to have a team that is disciplined both on the field and, off the field. And I don't know that that's what Jimbo Fisher has right now. And it's hard to go into the depth chart. And unfortunately, this is something Nick Saban talked about in the Bama game, but we are living in a world of transfer portal where you are a star recruit and you don't want to sit behind somebody because you're a star recruit. So you're just going to enter the transfer portal. And so when we get into the guys that are sort of the backup guys, there's no veteran backup guys to jump on the field, because if you're someone that can jump on the field, you're the next guy in line, you're just going to transfer somewhere. And that sort of backup leadership that you need in those guys that are in the depth chart, it's not there. And that's across all programs. So I think that's something that you're going to see across every program, but something that we certainly saw for the Aggies.
Yeah. Matt, what you think, man?
I think Herbstreit hit the nail on the head earlier. He said one of the issues, the other, and this is a quote from his quote, the other thing is unwarranted preseason hype. Number 6, high expectations for a team that did not deserve that. They beat Alabama last year. They have all these great recruits, and all of a sudden everybody thinks they're Alabama. It doesn't work like that. And I could not agree with Kirk more. The Aggies just don't look good, offensively speaking. I think they ran the ball. Where's the stat? They ran that ball 32 times. They averaged 3.9 yards per carry. And I don't know enough about A&M's offense to know that they're supposed to be able to, if they're a run first or pass first team, but in the SEC, you got to be able to run the ball somewhat, and 3.9 yards per carry is not going to cut it. And like we've been saying, this is a team that offensively they struggle. Defensively, they're able to hold them into games. But how's that going to look when they run into Georgia, or if they run into Bama, or when they run into Mississippi State, who can get the offense clicking when they have to? They're not.
Or in LSU.
Or in LSU. They're not going to win in a shootout. That's not going to happen. So this is not, if I'm Jimbo Fisher, I'm feeling a little concerned. And just like you said earlier, Max Johnson did look a little bit better, but still 10 for 20 for 140 yards. It's really nothing to write home about. I mean, granted,
especially for a quarterback whispering coach.
Yeah, again, I hate to say it about Jimbo, but I think I don't know. I don't see this ending well. I just don't. Those boosters in Aggieland are not going to be that patient. I don't care if they did sign him to a 10-year contract. They're not going to be that patient.
Yeah,
no, and they'll put up the dollars for any buyout.
They will, and you better believe that they will. They get a hot lead on a good coach. They'll cut him loose in a heartbeat.
Absolutely. And that midnight yell, I'm sorry, that video that Oldrow released, that was so uncomfortable. I need someone to help us understand, because I felt uncomfortable watching it on video.
I was watching it the whole time, just trying to figure out where's this going? I mean, it's like he kept trying to say stuff to try to get a laugh, try to be cool, try to, whatever. And
he probably had to tone it way down after that Appalachian State thing got out.
Yeah, but some of them were like
them in the rear.
Some of them were like dude jokes type of stuff. It's like, okay, this is just awkward now.
A&M's in a weird spot right now, and I'm not just talking about the football program. We're talking just all across the board. When you look at the situation with the midnight yell stuff, with the football program, it's not a good look.
Yeah,
also,
I know.
With Texas entering the SEC,
yeah, it's about to get a lot more uncomfortable.
It is, because before, I feel like the coaching staff could say, "Hey, you're going to play in the SEC, right? You're going to play here. Don't go to Texas. Come here." Well, that chip's now being taken off the table, and Texas looking, at least on the field, better than A&M is.
Yeah, and I was gonna say, the team that was the angriest when that announcement was made that they were joining was A&M, because they're like, oh well, we do not have the Texas monopoly in the SEC any longer. I know Jimbo was trying to sell this as Max Johnson making smart decisions, and the stats weren't great, but he didn't force anything that wasn't there. But I mean, still, to your point, Matt, you said I don't know if they are a run first or a pass first team. I don't think A&M knows at this point.
They have no idea.
They don't have an identity, and that's the problem. And again, why it's mystifying where you have not only a coach who's making all this money, but you also have all these recruits that just continue to pour in. And let's be honest. I mean, yeah, they had the number 1 class and they had all these 5 stars this year, but it's not just this year. A&M's been recruiting at a high level the past several years,
Goes
and
back
even
to
beyond.
development.
Yeah, no doubt. So,
I mean, we look at, you look at recruits that come in, and it's the same thing that happened at Mizzou. These are good recruits that are coming in, and it's like nothing's being done with them.
Regression.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, let's talk about some blowouts real quick. The first one was Georgia at South Carolina. Georgia winning this one 48-7.
It's a freaking bloodbath.
Matt got the point in this one. This is the most lopsided game in series history. They've been playing this game since 1894, and this was the 75th meeting between these two teams. So, if I'm, you guys remember last year the post game presser with Beamer when they were talking about him, and he was like, they got 5 stars here, they got 5 stars everywhere, and he was like,
yeah, I remember
now.
It's like there's like a fly buzzing around his head as he was saying that. He's like, it was just comical, but yeah, it was, I think, even worse this time. And whatever. I don't think it's necessarily a commentary on how bad South Carolina is. And I'm not saying that just because I'm a Georgia fan. I mean, the product on the field looked really good on Saturday. Georgia looked really good. Even Carson Beck, who I've not been impressed with as a backup quarterback, looked pretty good. And I know I said this is a blowout and I want to cruise through this, but I just wanted to say that real quick. Did you guys want to talk about the Beamer thing real quick, what he said?
Yeah, I always want to talk about Beamer.
Yeah, let's talk about him. Go ahead.
Oh, I didn't know if you had it to play.
I don't, and I'm sorry.
Okay.
I should have grabbed
No,
that
you're
one.
good. I was like, oh, okay. But for those that didn't see it, go look it up. He's just a funny guy in pressers, I think. I think it's because he's so willing to say the not PR side of things. He's just going to tell you exactly what he thinks. And I can't remember the exact question, but essentially a reporter was like,
was there any give up in the locker room?
Yeah, was there any give up in the locker room? He's like, no.
Yeah.
That's
what kind
not
of question is that,
vocabulary.
Paul, or whatever the guy's name?
He was not happy about that question. He was pissed.
Come on.
Yeah.
And it was funny, but I mean, kudos. I hope there wasn't, because if I were them, there would have been a lot of give up in my locker room.
Yeah.
I was not encouraged by the Spencer Rattler performance. Now, granted, his line was not holding and he was getting just smashed.
Right.
But I was not impressed by his decision-making skills in that game at all.
Yeah.
Well,
Matt, did you have anything before we move on?
Listen, if you're a Carolina fan, you may want to cover your ears because this is probably going to offend the heck out of you. I'm getting some hardcore Derek Dooley vibes off.
Oh no.
Of Beamer. Good. Like he screams Derek Dooley, they're coming. Orange pants, Derek Dooley. Just just everything about him, the way he presents himself, the way that their teams have looked in these games, it screams Derek Dooley. And I'm going to say a prayer for South Carolina tonight before I go to bed, because if they have to endure what Tennessee had to endure under Derek Dooley, God help you. If you're a Carolina fan by the end of that tenure, then you're a true blue, dedicated, garnet and gold, whatever, what have you. Like you deserve a conference championship.
Encouraged by him though. Every Carolina fan I've talked to, and I haven't talked to any since yesterday, but as someone who lives in Carolina country, they seem very encouraged by Beamer. So I think they have some patience.
I can tell you, Tennessee fans were real encouraged by Derek for the first year or two as well. So
yeah, we had cool
played this game.
And I don't even like orange.
I've seen this game, kids. I've seen it, and he ticks that box of Derek Dooley. So.
Okay, I never thought about that. Well, I'll be looking at things through that lens from now on.
By the way, I need you, Wes, while I have you here. I need you. Hold on. Let me pull up the kid's name because I've forgotten what it is. I need you to talk to Brock Bowers and tell him he needs to chill the heck out. Because, son, he had 5 catches and he went 121 yards and 2 TDs in this game. Like, who?
Yeah, one of those was a really long reception.
78 yards.
Yeah, I was going to say it's about, yeah.
And I'm just like, where? You need to chill, dude. Like, you're going to hurt yourself.
Defense got to shut this man down. Don't give this man any room.
It does feel good when you're playing an SEC opponent, but you're able to get your second and third string in there pretty quick. So I don't know.
By the way, one more thing I want to mention, then I'll shut up about this, is Georgia's defense is scary good. They had 6 tackles for losses in this game, and then 9 quarterback hurries in this game as well. So Spencer Rattler getting any kind of progressions was just no shot. He didn't have time to breathe, let alone to go through reads. So that Georgia defense is nasty. And I'm pretty sure that's why Georgia won the national championship last year too, is because of that defense.
Yeah. And that touchdown late in the game on the third stringers and beyond was the first touchdown that they gave up this year. So and I'm sure there was still a little bit of pride
minute or something.
As I say, I'm sure there was still a little pride going on there, even though it was, the third and whatever stringers there, they still didn't want to give up that score. There's some pride there. But anyway. All right, let's move on to Youngstown State, the Penguins at Kentucky. Kentucky winning this one 31-0. Matt got the point in this one. I have nothing to say on this one, because Kentucky took care of business, right? And that's like one of those.
They did what they were supposed to do.
They did what they were supposed to do. And then Abilene Christian Wildcats at Missouri. Mizzou winning this one 34-17. I got the point in this one. This one was apparently so overlooked that ESPN didn't even have a box score on it. I had to grab this from like CBS Sports or something. So anyway, so they did what they should have done there. And then Ole Miss at Georgia Tech. Ole Miss blowing them out 42-10. This was not even a game for even just a little bit. Matt got the point in this one.
They almost tripled their yards.
Yeah, it was just, it was crazy. Then UL Monroe at Alabama. Bama getting this one 63-7. Matt getting the point in this one. Almost got it exactly right, man. You had 63-10. You were so close. Yeah,
so close.
So Jesse, I'll stop here because I know you want to talk about this one. So what do you got?
I just got a few bullet points. It was good. We needed this little tune-up. Whew. And for the sake of my cardio health, I needed it. But Bryce Young passed for 3 touchdowns and rushed for a 4th. Will Anderson Jr. scored on an interception return. And I was hoping that we would have a 63-0 victory, but that's okay, because at the end of the game, I'm not kidding, I quite literally didn't know who some of these children were. I have no idea who they are. They clearly play for us. I don't know if they regularly play for us or they were someone's cousin, but everybody got playing time. It seemed like everybody got scored a touchdown. We scored on offense, on defense, and on special teams in the first 6 minutes of the game, which was very fun. And that was after the defense and special teams was after the first Bryce Young interception of the season. And he did end up throwing 2 interceptions. And I will say both of them were bonehead moves. They were not something where it was somebody else's fault. I really do believe that it was just poor decision-making on Bryce Young's part. So that was not great. In the second quarter, we kind of stalled for a minute, which I know looking at the score, that seems asinine to say, but we did kind of sputter a little bit, which is something that I think we also saw in the Texas game, which cannot happen moving forward. Young completed 13 of 18 passes for 236 yards. Again, he also threw his first 2 interceptions of the season. Jahmyr Gibbs was a versatile weapon for us. He gained 36 yards on 9 carries and caught 4 passes for 65 yards, including a 37-yard touchdown. And I believe I saw a stat today saying that he is our leading receiver, which is kind of an interesting one. But overall, a great showing by the Tide, something really encouraging. We got to see both backup quarterbacks, which I loved, and really encouraged by the passing game on Milroe, but also his ability to run the ball. So looking forward to seeing some more playing time for that young man.
Indeed. Matt, I don't want to rob you of a chance to talk about Bama. Do you have anything? Okay. All right.
Gonna Bama. I mean,
all right.
There's nothing to talk about.
Well, last but not least, let's talk about the Akron Zips at Tennessee. Tennessee getting this one 63-6. I got the point in this one. I don't have much. Matt, what do you have as a Tennessee fan? What you got?
Again, I'm going to point to the bunker door that's tightly sealed. I'm not buying the hype. I love my boys. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not. We did what we were supposed to. We took care of business. Tennessee continues to throttle people they're supposed to throttle, which is a nice change of pace over the last couple of years when you lose to people like Georgia State, things like that. So yeah, that's good. I'm happy about that. Hendon Hooker went 14 for 18 for almost 300 yards in this game. Pretty good. Joe Milton had a couple dimes as well. He threw just as many touchdowns as Hendon Hooker did. Jalen Wright, Dylan Sampson, they both had good nights. Jalen Wright almost got to 100 yards on his carries. Jalen Hyatt had 5 receptions for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns. So offensively, fantastic. I love it when we get the 50 burger and the 60 side of fries. That makes me happy. I'm okay with it. That's great. Tennessee's defense played pretty solid too. They had 4 sacks on the night, 11 tackles for losses. So pretty solid venture top to bottom. However, I've been abused. I have been roughed up. I love this team. Don't get me wrong, but I'm not ready to buy the hype. We've looked really good through 3 games thus far. Aside from a couple of miscues here and there with West Virginia, or not West Virginia, but with Pitt. So I'm hoping we can keep that momentum up, especially going into Florida.
Next week's big.
Next week's going to be a good indication of where we're at, really. So I don't
get to watch it on CBS with Gary Danielson.
Good, Gary.
Yeah, Penn State, you guys now understand.
You do.
Yeah.
Congratulations. Welcome to the party.
Get it.
Oh man. All right. Jesse, you have anything to say about that one? Yeah. All right. Well, current pick'em standings, I've got 15. Matt has 14. Jesse has 7. Jesse made a good little surge this week, getting a bunch of points. So let's go ahead and talk about a little bit of news that just came out.
Here's the news.
All right, so the new AP poll is out, and I know, we all just or whatever about the AP, but it is an indicator until CFP comes out. So let's just talk about it real quick. We'll talk about the top 10 and then the rest of the SEC teams as they round out the top 25. First is number 1, Georgia, number 2, Alabama, number 3, Ohio State, number 4, Michigan, number 5, Clemson, number 6, Oklahoma, number 7, USC, number 8, Kentucky, number 9, Oklahoma State, number 10, Arkansas. Then number 11, Tennessee, number 16, Ole Miss, and then 20, Florida, and 23, Texas A&M. So, Jesse, let's start with you. What are your thoughts on this AP poll? Is there anything that's just glaring that you're like, no, I wouldn't do that, or I'd drop them, or I'd put them up, or?
I don't know that I'd put Texas A&M at 23.
Yeah.
I might drop them a little lower. I also don't know that Florida is 20. I think Ole Miss might, I could see them jump a little higher. Is Clemson good? What are they doing? I don't know.
I don't know that we really know yet.
I don't. Okay, that's a bold move. Let's just drop them at 5 because of name recognition. Stop putting Ohio State in the top 5 just because. Stop it.
Hey, them Buckeyes are good.
I just hate it, and I feel like. Ugh.
Oh wait, Jesse, let's go back and talk about Clemson. Clemson deserves to be a top 3. Listen to who they've beat so far this season. They played Georgia Tech at home. They beat them 41-10. They beat Furman 35-12, and they beat Louisiana Tech 40-20. Definitely top 5 team.
Wow, for sure. No, yeah, move those guys up.
But hey, they got a tough matchup this week against Wake Forest.
Whew.
And then next week they got to play NC State.
Wow. Okay. We'll start finding out a little bit more anyway.
Tough ones. Michigan. Okay. I mean, it's so early. I don't even know. Like, none of it matters. It's all fake. Nobody cares. But I will say, Game Day did a great special on one of the Michigan tight ends, and I almost cried. It was lovely.
Yeah. Matt, your thoughts on these rankings?
Okay, so I want to preempt. Hold on.
Just breathe. It's okay.
It doesn't matter.
I am Jekyll and Hyde when it comes to looking at the AP right now, and I'll explain why. One, I'm trying to figure out why in the world you'd put Tennessee behind Arkansas. I have a problem with that.
Yeah.
On one side of me, I have a problem with that. On the other side of me, I'm thinking we don't need to be in the top 10.
You have to talk in a different voice now.
We don't need to be in the top 10. We don't deserve to be in the top 10, but we're really good and we score lots of points. No, we're not very good. We suck. Like this whole, I don't know what to make of this. Again, Clemson's top 5 because they've been decent the last 10 years. It's the only reason why they're up there. Oklahoma's been throttling people. They took care of Nebraska this past weekend. So, I mean, I guess they deserve to be in the top 10. I saw USC at 7 and I'm like, why? Especially ahead of Kentucky. Okay.
Name recognition.
I reckon, but
I think
it's not
just that
2002 and they don't have Matt Leinart anymore. Like, when was the last time USC actually did something? Can you name when that last was? Like 2008, right?
I think that might have been about it.
Yeah, and it's been 20 years. They ain't done Nikes since then. I'm still trying to figure out why Florida's top 25. Because I don't think they should be. And I agreed with Jesse that Ole Miss should be higher. Ole Miss has been taking care of business too. They should be top 15.
It's interesting. You have a lot of these classic blue bloods that people just really want to be good. And we saw that applied to Notre Dame until they did so bad they couldn't keep them up any longer.
They couldn't justify it anymore.
No, somebody tried though.
I feel I feel like some of that's being applied to Clemson and certainly USC right now. It's almost like people are just hoping that some of those glory days come back. Which, hey, if they keep winning their games, I guess I can't necessarily argue with that, depending on who they're beating. But yeah, it's interesting.
Everything will be answered when we get our expanded playoff.
Oh man, it can't get here soon enough.
Also, I just looked at USC's record. They played Rice in their home opener.
Yeah.
Then they beat Stanford by 13 points, and then they throttled Fresno State this past weekend. They don't play a ranked opponent. Hold that thought. They don't play a ranked opponent until the middle of October.
Who is that?
Utah.
Okay, well, there's a little bit of a measuring bar with Florida there.
That's the only, a little bit. The only ranked team they play. They wrap up the season against Notre Dame. But that's it.
Woo!
Yeah, that's
they're gonna sit.
Classic
they're gonna sit
USC
in the top
Notre Dame.
10 until they screw up.
Stupid.
Of course, that's not that much different from. I mean, back in the day, under the BCS, USC used to skirt along with their terrible schedule, and they would make it undefeated at the end, and they would make it into the championship every time. Them in Texas. So
that's what happens when you don't play anybody.
Right, and that was the point of contention for so long. But the computer's unbiased. Oh man, I'm so glad the BCS was the worst. I'm so glad we don't have that anymore.
Well, that's the only way Tennessee won national championship, so I can't say anything.
Well, at least it was in an SEC schedule. I'll give them that. But hey, all right, let's talk about an old SEC coach, Nebraska. Nebraska reaches out to Urban Meyer, and this has been confirmed about their head coaching position. And I really want to know what you guys. We've already talked about this a little bit, but like, what are your thoughts on their thinking, their line of thinking, why they would reach out to Urban? What's the possible consequences here? Like, what do you guys think?
This is desperation. This is. We've seen it. No, we've seen it happen.
They want a splash hire. They went with the up and comer Lincoln Riley. That didn't pan out. Now they want somebody that's going to get some press.
I think you guys are saying the same thing, though.
Yeah,
they want a splash hire.
Desperate for attention. It happens. Think of like in college, there's this like, I can't say the word, but F boy, right? Who he's the thing. He's, you know, he's like the 5th year senior. And for some reason, everybody thinks he's a big deal, even though he's not. He's never going to graduate. And for some reason, you've got this like freshman girl that's like, oh my God. It's like, no, he just broke up with Brittany, Lindsay, Ashley, Summer, Tammy Lynn, all in 6 weeks. You don't want, he's gross. He'll cheat on you. And you're like, he's
quite literally
different with us. He'll stay. And it's like, no, we won't. We have seen this. I've seen it at every fraternity, and I've seen it with Urban Meyer. Stop it. You're better than that, Nebraska. Just be single for a while.
You've seen it with Urban Meyer at a fraternity. No, I'm just kidding.
I've seen it with Urban Meyer. And Morse. Just don't do this to yourself.
Yeah, Matt, what do you think?
It's just the whole situation. I don't think they should have fired Lincoln Riley quite yet. I think they should have given him a couple more games this season.
Scott Frost.
Or excuse me. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I knew what you meant. I was just putting it out there.
You know who I meant. And Lincoln Riley's at Oklahoma. Sorry, I'm mixing up my big
and USC now.
Oh, he's at USC.
I don't even know where they're at. Oh, that's right. I'm lost. I have no idea what's going on.
The geography is just
the heartbreak that everyone has gone through.
That's right. I forgot about
Remember, we talked about all the Oklahoma players throwing shade at him last year. It was a whole thing. It was great.
Nebraska, outside of the Osborne era, did Nebraska ever do much?
I was gonna say, this is not the 90s.
Yeah,
so
I don't think they ever really did. I mean, Osborne was there for like 30 some odd years. But the thing is I feel like Nebraska and Florida are kind of the same kind of trajectory. You know, this is a team, both teams were great in the 90s. They historically weren't doing a whole lot. I could be wrong about Nebraska. I don't know enough about their background. But Florida, prior to Spurrier showing up, was the SEC kicking boy. Like, they didn't do a whole lot at all. They were not known to be a football powerhouse until Spurrier showed up. I feel like Nebraska is kind of that way too. So you take Osborne out of the situation. What have they done? Probably not a lot. So they're trying to figure out who to hire. Is Urban Meyer the guy? Ugh. Especially after the way things ended in Jacksonville and how he left at Florida and that whole situation.
All of it.
And the whole situation at Ohio State. Like, everything about him just screams, you know, NCAA violation and just unethical coaching. And it's just, I don't know why you'd want somebody like that associated with the program. I listen, as a Tennessee fan, I understand the importance of winning, and you're a blue chip, blue blood program, but I just don't know if it's worth the damage you could do to your reputation as an athletic department.
It's not.
And there's so many other people out there.
If you want somebody that's mildly questionable to coach your program, go from Frost to Freeze.
Frost to Freeze.
Freeze would probably. Well, I don't know. Things have been looking good in Liberty for the last. This past season, but the Nebraska boosters have deep pockets, so I'm curious as to who they're going to try and wrangle down, and I don't know who they would get that's available right now.
Right now, I don't know, but at the end of an NFL season, they just got to wait it out. They got to wait till the end of an NFL season, because there's got to be an NFL coach that they can snag, or a coordinator.
Yeah, I don't know. So it's funny. So I agree with you both. So, Matt, I think that they do want to get a splash hire, because let's be honest, I'm not hating on the great state of Nebraska, but not a ton of people are like, you know, where I just can't wait to go, Nebraska. And then agree to your point, Jesse. I think it is a desperate move. In order to get that splash hire, they're willing to give pretty much anybody who's a big name, recognizable name, a chance. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not saying anything's going to come of it, and you know, maybe nothing happens from this, but it's definitely interesting that they're reaching out.
Maybe they were just calling to see if he knew somebody, like if he
have any references,
advice.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe so. Interesting though. Interesting thought. So, and then another thing here. This has nothing to do with the SEC, but Herm Edwards fired at Arizona State, which gives me a reason to play this clip.
Hello, you play to win the game.
Exactly. So Poor Herm. Anyway,
that clip is so old now, by the way.
It is. It's ancient.
Isn't that from like 2006?
Yeah, that was when he was coaching the Jets, I believe. Yeah, that was a long time ago. Well, hey, here for sake of minisode length, let's go ahead and end here, and we'll start with the speed round next time. So thank you very much for listening to us on this minisode, this early reactions to this past week of college football. If you would like to contact us, please email us at pigskinsandpageantry@gmail.com. We are at Pigskins and Pageantry on TikTok, Instagram, and Facebook. All three of those, the same handle. On Twitter, we are at PPSCC Podcast. Don't forget we are available for download on iTunes, Spotify, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and most podcasting apps for iPhone, Android, and other operating systems. If you enjoyed the show, please give us 5 stars. We would love that. Rate us, review us, whatever app you're on. Hit the subscribe button. We'd greatly appreciate that. So hey, next show we'll do speed round, we'll do just for fun, we'll do predictions, and until then, this is Wes. Go Dogs.
Just remember to choose yourself this week, and do not fall into a desperate trap of Urban Meyer frat boys. You're better than that. Roll Tide.
Let them live, Jesse. Okay, let them live. Beat Florida. Go Vols.